guitars. Okay, so we've got rhythm guitar left 1 through 3, and the way I understand it, the very first track is the cleanest, and that goes for the right as well. So rhythm guitar 1 is the cleanest tone, and then I think 2 and 3 are the more grittier tones. Let's listen to this first guitar track. So it's not actually that these tracks have been duplicated and treated differently. They are actually being played differently. That is how you get that width. You know, when you're doing left-right, hard left-right guitars, when both tracks are being played at different times, slightly different variations, it really adds to that perception of width. What's the second guitar sound like? Really dirty. And then, so that's 3. You've got 3 distinct tones there, and left and right are being played at different times and slightly different embellishments. And that's all adding to this great soup of wide, big, full-sounding guitars. Let's listen to them all together, actually. Really great, chunky, meaty guitars. I want to retain as much as that energy as I can. What I've heard of this band's recordings previously, the 80s vibe has been replicated in the tonality of all their mixes. So the guitars sound much less meaty than this and more mid-focused. I want to explore a slightly fuller sound in my goal of getting that blend of heavy rock guitars and 80s punk guitars. So trying to find a happy medium there for both tones to live. There's another set of guitars here, which are the overdub guitars. So let's have a listen to those. Really great tones, but you can hear that that's a different tone again, different playing style. Check out what they all sound like. Great, we've got lots to get our teeth into here. Finally, let's listen to this guitar solo. So how are we going to get started here? I'm going to put a tape machine on all of these. Tape machine really goes a long way to rounding out transients, giving a smoother performance. The first step, shall we say, taking out any kind of harshness. So I've got a tape machine, my tape machine here. Let's stick with A, and then let's check out what is happening with guitar 2. Not hearing much really in terms of tonal changes here. I'm just listening for the very tops, any harsh tones that are being softened. So I'm not overthinking it, I'm just going to pick one and go with it. Okay, and then the third tone. I felt as though that calmed down the top end a little bit. It's all very little minor tonal changes. My feeling is that in terms of tone, these guitars are going to sound pretty full. And then when they're blended in with the bass guitar, it's going to be really full. So I think I need to do some control, really, with these tones, particularly where you've got kind of the chugging palm mute playing that goes on in the verses. That can build up and start to just and get really muddy and thick. So that's going to need some help. If we had the thicker tone, so that third guitar starts to get a little bit choked, a little bit muffled. So I think that I'm going to look at using a multiband on it. So that's just taking probably not even 3 dBs off of that tone in a dynamic way. And I'm going to copy that over to the right hand 3 as well. What do they both sound like soloed? They both still sound reasonably full. What I haven't done is started to look at the group bus plugins for the guitars, which could go a long way towards the overall tonality. So let's do that. Let's get them all back in. What I've got on here is a couple of choices actually. I've got this Neve style preamp that might be a little bit too thick sounding for these guitars. So let's see what that does. It's really subtle. It's just ever so slightly increasing the sound stage. I want to listen to that kind of like palm muted chorus section again. So it is adding a thickness to that tone as well. One thing we can try as an alternative is, rather than this Neve flavour, could try something else, maybe like Trident or SSL. So I'm just going to bypass that for now, and let's have a look at the virtual channel strip. Let's try the Brit E, and then I'll go flip round. We'll try the different flavours here to see what we like. I liked that the Brit N, what I heard there was that thickness, that control on the high end, it just took a little bit off the tops, but what I'm getting on the Trident is a more mid-tone. Let's bypass that, see if we can hear that. Yeah, I'm liking that trident sound. So I'm going to stick with that for the time being. If I change my mind later, we can always go back. So the next thing is a little bit of compression. These guitars are so compressed already by the amount of distortion they've got on them, but let's try this. The compression I use is so subtle and gentle anyway, but what I like about this SPL iron compressor is its ability to build in separation and width. What it will do is it will actually add a little bit of a gain bump, so bear that in mind when I switch it in. Yeah, I really like what that's doing. There is a gain bump there, but there's the tonality that it adds as well is just great. The other nice feature of this compressor is this little switch here in the middle. You've got air bass and you've got tape roll off. So air bass adds a little bit of kind of sheen, and tape roll off, as you would expect, you lose a little bit of high end. So let's try that out. That could help, but bear in mind I've just added the trident to add a little bit of that sheen. It might be a little bit weird to kind of choose that option, but let's try it out anyway. Really subtle. But with the tape roll off, it just, everything kind of gets tucked in and feels more homogenized. It feels like a record and more controlled, whereas with the air bass, it sounded much crisper, and therefore that gave the impression of more width as well. Thing to do is to audition this in the mix. Let's just listen to the bass and the guitars at the moment. Okay, I definitely didn't like the tape roll off for the guitars, so I kind of like it bypass or with the air bass. If I use the air bass, I may end up then going back and using the Neve preamp. And it's all about these little small moves, and I just want to make sure that I control the tonality of these guitars at the moment, that low end in the palm mute section. For now then, I'm going to leave this compressor in. It's not really compressing that much. It's all about tonality with this. So I'm going to play the guitars now, and I'm just going to mute each pair till I find out which one is the one that's contributing the most to that low end. So it's guitar 2. So I'm going to copy this multiband over to guitar 2 that we've already done. Let's solo guitar 2 and just dial this in so that it's correct. Sounds close enough. So that sounds more controlled. There's not so much of that low end woof stuff going on. I'll mute the multibands and then I'll bring them back in. So that's doing a really good job of tidying that up for me.
All right, let's move on and look at our guitars here. There's honestly not a lot I would want to do to this guitar tone. I think it sounds pretty good. Let's throw on some compression. So I really love the CLA 3A, and you can see I've got it set to automatically load this electric guitar preset. It's just one of the stock presets here, electric guitar. And this goes for pop rock, rock, alternative, metal, always using this setting. And the sweet spot I find is around 5 dB gain reduction. I'll show you what this does. Now it's pretty subtle, so I'm going to kind of A-B it a little bit. I'll try to describe it. It's not so much for level control. It's not like we really need to compress and control the level of a distorted guitar like this. It's for character. So I find it's kind of smoothing out and flattening the kind of extremes of the frequency spectrum a little bit. Kind of the high-end fizziness is getting a little bit contained. But also listen to the front-end attack of the guitar notes, especially in this riff where it's like boom, boom, boom. Listen to those, and I'll bypass it and I'll put it back in, and you can hear how those kind of pick attacks is just like squashing it a little bit, squishing it together, just contains it in a really nice way. Just kind of contains that guitar tone a bit. All right, so let's see if we can get rid of some of the high-end fizziness from this guitar, which I want to do first in the chain, actually. By the way, you'll see me controlling just one plugin. I have these plugins linked. So in Pro Tools, my rhythm guitar group, with this left and right guitar, you can see that I have my insert, all my inserts, controls, and bypass linked. So that means when I'm changing one, I'm changing the other. So I should stop and explain that. You can see if I change the gain on the one side, it's changing on the other side as well. So just kind of a handy trick there. So let's throw on simple REQ. Really any EQ would be fine in place here. Now I'm going to try and find some of the harsh frequencies in the high mids and try to notch them out a little bit. So typically in a heavy distorted guitar, that's going to be around between 3 and 4.5K, and it's probably also going to be around 6K. That's what I found. So let's make a really narrow boost. See where it jumps out as being the worst. So I find right around there. Kind of nasty. Let's try and dip that out. Now let's look around 6K. So it's a little bit hard to pinpoint how to do this, but as you get better at hearing things, like as I'm sweeping this, I mean, it kind of all sounds bad, right? So how do you settle? There's a certain point as I'm sweeping it where it just jumps out a little more. Find this right around there. Just bothers me more than kind of the rest of it. So let's try to dip that out. Again, really narrow here. I don't want to go too crazy. Like I don't want to go, because some of that fizziness in the guitar tone and that high mid bite, you need that. That's what sounds great in a guitar. So I don't want to totally kill it. But I do want to kind of smooth out and take the edge off of it a little bit. So that definitely helps there. Maybe we can filter down a little more on our low pass filter. Maybe right about there. Now most of the song they're not playing big chords, so you don't hear the fizz as much. But it does still help clean up a little bit there. Let's see where we're at versus the old mix. Hold on, it's a bit louder here. So we still got some work to do. Now this guitar is sounding a little bit dull to me, a little bit dark. I'm gonna try and boost a little bite around 1.5. Let's see how that works. Hear how that's this subtle move, but it's just helping it jump out of the mix a little more.